First off, thank you for the organizer for organizing the great event. So far, since the morning, I enjoyed this very much, as well as learning from the other speakers and the panelists from the discussion as well. My appreciation to His Excellency Watana for your consideration, cooperation, as well as your presentations on the e-learning in Cambodia as well. So welcome to my presentation. My name is Visal Sou. I am the ACE Campus Manager, and I am going to talk about a few things, practical ideas for content developer, especially in how we engage, empower, as well as determining the success of the learning. Right, this is the content of my talk. We will first look at how do we define content, especially in the e-learning platform, the digital content. Second one is on strategies. How do we engage the students through content? Point number 3 will be on how to empower the students from the content in their learning and teaching process. Point number 4 will be on how do we determine the success from the learning by using the content that is engaging and empowering. And the last one is on some tips for the content developer in order to embed in their design of the content, especially for the e-learning or what we call blended learning, or sometimes we may want to refer to it as the virtual learning as well. Right, so what is content then? I like to address that content may vary. The definitions of content may vary from one subject to another. For example, like in the science, content may relate to, student doing the experimentations, studying about different types of animal in the world. However, in the math class, content may refer to solving problems, mathematical problems. In physics, it may be more about, how to find the answers to some equations. But overall, content may refer to simply what we teach and what the student learns. And when we talk about content, usually in the traditional approach, the face-to-face interaction, teachers concerned with what should be included in the session, what content sources should student access, what should be covered for the examination, especially the monthly examination, semester examination, as well as the end of year examination as well. Teachers also concerned with how much time is spent on a particular unit, and the list goes on. But I think in the digital age, we need to move away from the traditional questions and looking at some of the issue that we need to address. For example, what are the goals for teaching content? Do we want them to learn a particular skill, a particular lesson, or should we want them to go beyond what we are teaching? Second one, we need to understand what are the interactions like, especially the interaction between the students and the teachers, as well as the students and the students themselves as well. Point number 3, it's also concerned with how do students interact with the content itself in order to make sense, in order to make meaning, in order to understand what they are learning as well. Point number 4, it's also relate to what strategies do students develop that enable them to cope with massive and the growing amounts of knowledge in their study. I think the previous speaker mentioned, the total shift from face-to-face into the online teaching environment within a night. And that presents a number of challenge for all educators around the world, not particularly in Cambodia. So at ACE, I think we face the same problem where we deal with around 24,000 students starting at ACE back in March 2020. And we were looking at how can we support the students, how can we support the parents, supporting the students learning at home, and how do we train the teachers to keep engaging the students in the online learning environment. Right, so in my presentations, I will address some of this bit by bit, as well as giving some tips, activity that we have done at ACE as well. So first off, let's define engagement. What is engagement, right? I like to quote from Sarah and Donnie, who define engagement as active participation and involvement in the learning activity. So when we talk about learning, the student need to engage, the teachers need to involve them in the activity. But oftentimes, teachers are very busy thinking about what am I going to teach. You create a list of information, learning point for the students, and then you go to class trying to get yourself ready for the class, and you were like, okay, this is the item that we are going to learn, number 1, number 2, number 3, and number 4. And after that, the student will like, okay, right? So when we talked about content, it moved beyond just a list of points that they are going to learn. Right. So what are the underlying principles on how we can engage the student through the content? I think the first one, to understand what we call the social connections or the social relationships. So according to research, what we understand is that the students feel comfortable, the students engage in the activity depending on their relationship with the teachers. If the teachers can build first good impressions, it helps with the engagements of the students in their learning activity. Not only that, the interactions between the students and the students are also important. Because, for example, referring to the, I think, Siri Watt in the morning, when he talked about delivering the lesson through Zoom, where the student turn off the camera, and when you put them into the breakout room for discussions, imagine you're looking at the black screen with just only name, no faces at all. You don't feel comfortable, in the discussions. So the interaction between the teachers and the students are very important, as well as the interaction between the students and the students themselves as well in the e-learning environment. So as teachers, what can we do? What kind of content should we create in order to engage the learner and develop the social connections? Some of my favorite activity in here is share personal stories, where I ask the students to, show some objects which they like and tell us more about the object. Or it can be about their favorite movie, it can be about their favorite resort, or it can be about their favorite character in the movie. In that way, you build trust among yourself and the students, as well as among the students themselves as well. Second point that we can look at is on using collaborative tasks. So this can appear in form of the portfolio, it can appear in form of the group presentations, as well as getting into group discussion in order to solve a complex problem. Right, so think about yourself as teachers. What kind of activity would you do in order to introduce all this kind of tasks? Right. Some example that you can look at. These tools are actually free, which you can use to engage the students in the online learning environment. The first one is Schoology, where we look at subjects which the teachers can interact with the students. You can build rapport with the students, as well as getting them to do the task collaboratively. The second one is the Padlet. It's similar to Schoology, where you introduce a number of tasks for the students. It's like a classroom wall with posters where the students can go in, they can read, they can do some activity as well. And the last one is the show and tell activity, which it can be simple object which the student can create, and they feel comfortable talking about the object that they like to the class. Right, that's principle number one. Number two, it's related to the confidence, right? And what do we mean by confidence? So normally when we teach the students, we need to understand that they feel safe as well as confident in their learning. You're not going to let them fail. but inject a sense of successful actions that they can get from that. So learners tend to engage more if they believe they succeed in the task they are doing. But it's also important to make the task challenging enough to represent a sense of achievement. And by challenging, it's hard to define, because when we talk about challenge, for grade 1, for 6-year-old, and for the 10 years old kids, they are totally different. But as a teacher, I believe you can define that clearly. And that sense of achievement create what we call a growth mindset. I think the speaker in the morning also referred to that already regarding the growth mindset. So a growth mindset enables learners to deal better with difficulty and challenges. And how do we incorporate that into the lesson through the content we are doing? Okay, I think the first thing that you can do is to increase the level of difficulty of the activities when you introduce to the students. But again, you need to do this in a step-by-step approach. Do not give them a lot of difficult tasks, but do not give them the task that is too easy for them as well. Right. Second one, you need to make the progress visible. By visible, I mean ask them to keep record of what they have achieved. There should be a reflections. It can be a daily reflections, weekly reflections of what have I learned today, what have I achieved, what am I going to do next. And that's linked to the other notions which we call SMART feedback, which is feedback that is specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and last one is a timely feedback. You don't want to give feedback on the task that they completed a month ago or a year ago. It must be in a timely manner. So some of the activity that I did in the class, right? So you look at here, I divide the student into group where they are given a certain amount of score if they can answer correctly. So 100 represent the fact that the answer is simple, easy to answer. 200 more complicated. 400, yes, it's become more difficult. I think 500 is the most difficult one. So let's have a try between 100, right? So this is in relation to the verb. So they need to find a definition, right? A synonym. What is the meaning of the word finish? The synonym of the word finish. It can be over, very simple. But if you go to the 500, it's more of like go onto a bus, a train, aircraft, and so on. What is the meaning for that? If they can answer correctly, they can get higher score on that. Right, okay. So we finished with number 2 regarding the self-confidence. In point number 3, regarding engagements, it's more about curiosity. So in learning, it's important to make the student curious about their learning. So the more they are curious about their learning, it triggers their response to know more, to search more, and to continue the learning activity beyond the classroom as well. So how do we incorporate all of this, this concept of curiosity? How do we make the student curious in the class and even after the class? So I think the first one is to incorporate what we call the discovery approach in the learning, where the students need to find out things by themselves, as well as creating, here, you're itching your head, what we call the mental itch, where the students work together, they try to resolve element of surprise and the mystery in their classroom as well. And it can be done easily. You don't have to refer to, some sort of apps or other platform which you have to pay. The next example I show you is a simple PowerPoint presentations, easily create, which engage the students very well. So in this number, the student don't know what are the questions behind that, whether it is easy or difficult. So in that way, you make them curious, you make them want to know more about that. But at the same time, include element of surprise. Let's see, which of the number or the letter do you want to choose in here? I may give an example. Let's say I may go to C. Okay, all right, let me click on C first. Okay, all right. So this is in relation to the passive voice in the English language class. So their job is to, let's say, complete the sentence by using the word in the bracket. You get $100, right? An example only, if you can answer correctly. So the students may answer, yeah, right? Olympic Stadium was built by Mr. Van Malevan, right? That's very good job. Let's move to the next one then. Okay, so once they answer that already, it disappeared. E may be a bit more difficult. You got 500 for that. Change the sentence from passive voice to the correct passive voice tenses. You may, my mom cooks the dinner, and you may say, well, the dinner is cooked by my mom, right? So that's the answer you can see in here. An element of surprise, because they don't know what's behind that. It can be questions with higher money. It can be questions, easy questions with less money, or it can be a bomb, which means they have lost all the money they earn. So all of these are simple PowerPoint designs, which help the learners, engage. They are curious and they want to learn more in the, especially in the competition as well. This is another example. Again, simple PowerPoint design. You don't need to pay money for that. You just need to learn how to do it only. So in this activity, where the students are asked to identify or guess what is the pictures. So they need to select which of the number that they need to open that allow them to get the clue, sufficient enough to let them identify the word. Right, so if I ask you to do it, which number would you select? So I guess most of you would select number 5. So let's go with number 5 then. Okay, all right, easy. You can identify what is the word for that. Of course, it is a monk, okay? Right, but once again, you don't have to put the picture in the middle, and you can increase the level of difficulty by adding more square. So when you add more square, it's hard to identify where the picture is. Most teachers, they put the picture in the middle, but for others, not exactly in the middle. You may want to try number 9, number 10. You may want to go to number 8, okay, right? 15, and by now, it takes 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 clicks in order to identify the word in the pictures, okay? So that's really, keep the student engaged, empower, and curious all the time. So speaking of empower, I mentioned students are allowed to control, students are allowed to make what we call choice and voice. So let's go to empowerment. So how do we empower the students in their learning? So when we talk about empower, the first one way to look at is the element of control. So students learn better if they can control the aspect of what they learn, when they learn it, and how they learn it as well. You need to understand the pace that each student have in their learning. Not everyone is fast learner. Not everyone respond well to auditory. Not everyone respond well to the visual learning. There are different type of learners in the world. And what we as a teachers need to understand is that students learn better if they control what they learn, when, as well as how they learn. Right. So how do we incorporate this into the classroom then? So I think I mentioned the choice and voice already. Referring back to the previous, cube with number that I asked you all to select, it gives the student choices on which item they want to select. that allows them to get the idea and allows them to answer the questions correctly. So you give them the choices and the voices. But again, it's important to establish context within the learning. Second one, it's more of learner-centered learning. It's more of like introducing the project-based learning where the students work together, and as a teacher, you're not transmitting the knowledge anymore. You don't tell them what to do, but you act as a coach and facilitator. And in this situation, you actually teach them beyond just the content, but the learning skills that they need in order to succeed in their learning. I may have to skip this one. I don't think I have time for that. I will send the slide. Once you copy the slide, the question is, think about how can we use the picture here to create a task that would support the learner's control in their study. Think about choice and voice. Think about project-based learning. Think about the skill that they need to learn from the learning as well. So it can be, you can ask a student to select which of the animal they like and tell us why. And you can move on into introducing a group-based project where the students need to identify, group all this animal into their category. For example, it can be mammal, it can be reptile, it can be fish, and so on. So that's allowed, more than just choice and voice, but collaboration. They learn to negotiate, they learn to make meaning out of it. Okay, I think in terms of empowerment, number 2 is on relatedness. Some may refer to this as relevant. The questions, right? The question is, why am I learning this? What benefits do I get from that? Okay, so according to research, students are motivated and feel empowered if they see the value of what they are learning in their real life. I think even some of the students ask questions. Why do I have to learn chemistry? Why do I have to learn history? What does it, let's say, does it do any good in my life in the future? I never use anything about history at all. So I think this is the question most of the students ask about the value of what they learn, especially in relation to the real life. Right. Thank you. I received comments from the participant. Thank you for your comment. Let's keep going on a little bit then. Okay, all right. So as teachers, what can we do to make the students see the value of what they are learning? So first one, I think adapt the activity for the students. Think about their needs. Think about their ability, preferences, goal, and so on. You may want to talk about, your favorite movies. Invite them to talk about the favorite movie as well, and think about, what can you learn from the movie that you can apply into your real life? Because in every movie, even reading a short story, it gives you a learning point, which give you, ideas that you can use in your life as well. So I think it's important to explain those values, purposes, and the meaning of what they are learning, right? Okay, point number 4, it relates to success. So as teachers, when you develop content that is engaging and empowering, how do we define success in the learning? You may want to go to the end of term test, achieving high score in the end of year exam on a particular subject. You may receive like A+ on all the subjects and so on. But to me, I think as a teacher, I would prefer what we call a WOOP, which is wish, outcome, obstacle, and plan. So in the end, what we do, the success that we want from the students is not just getting good grade, but moving beyond that, creating what we call an independent learner. So some of this, let's say, I can share some with you. For example, ask them, what do you want to achieve? Maybe improving your learning skills, note-taking, summarizing. What do you expect to get out of it? I want to do well in the end of year examinations. Okay, that's good. But what prevents you from such achievement? So you let them think about what distracts them from the learning. It may be the learning environment at home. They don't have proper room to study online, noise around that, and so on, all sort of things. Okay, right. Sometimes the distraction can be your phone. Why? Notifications. I keep receiving notifications on the phone, and that is a bit of distraction as well. So how are you going to deal with it? Well, make a plan. If I am working, then you just need to turn off your notifications. Let your students think about their learning and plan for their learning. You can't plan for that. Right. Second one, very important. I think in terms of success, both the students and the teachers, you need to enjoy. Right? You need to enjoy, because everyone feels motivated to engage in teaching and learning, and even go beyond if you all enjoy. That's the second success that I would recommend for all teachers. So what can we do, to enjoy it? First one, develop the positive emotions in the classroom. You can draw on humors, physical activity. It can be visual. It can be music. You can play your favorite music and so on. You mean like it doesn't have. You don't have to hide yourself from that. But whatever you're doing, you're playing, concerned with the age appropriate. All right. And last one, think about the activity that you all have fun together. Okay. Right. I got a message. My time is up now. So I'd like to wrap up. What now then for content developer? Okay. Right. So first off, think about the goal of the content in the teaching and the learning process. Second one, how do you engage the learning through content? Social relation, self-confidence, curiosity. Number three, empower them. Let them control, make them see the connection between their learning and their real life. Number four, define success. It's not a big scale, something small, step by step, something that they can achieve it easily, but becoming bigger and bigger later. And the last one, I think the last one is up to you. Okay, I don't have other recommendation. Now it's up to you as educator, content developer. Think about what you can do in your own classroom. You know your class best. You know your student best. How can you engage, empower, and make your student successful? Right. I think I'm a bit over time. My apologies for this. Thank you for your attention.